Why is ill-starred Malaysia Airlines no longer a 5-star airline? Sometimes that's due to the relationships with the rating agency, but if you can't lie down comfortably on an expensive 12-hour business class flight, it's really a pain in the... So I better try it out first on a 4-hour trip through Asia. A good idea. On the trip from Kuala Lumpur to Bali, we'll look at the best lounge Malaysia Airlines has to offer, the business class seat with a real foot coffin, but also economy class and the onboard entertainment and of course the catering, because the way to everybody's heart is through the stomach. And as always, towards the end I'll say how I booked the flight and how also you can fly comfortably once in a while without breaking the bank. But now let's start in the dark morning hours from Kuala Lumpur Airport. On the Airport Express, it's just half an hour from the city center to this huge airport, and from here it's a short subway ride to the satellite terminal with Malaysia Airlines flagship lounge, the Golden Lounge. This lounge is big, but you can see that size doesn't always matter because everything feels a bit busy like in a train station. The service is friendly, but the range of dishes is just a bit too regional. If your first breakfast choice is not chili and dried fish, you won't have so many options. It's not the place for culinary experiences, and the lounge could also use a little better maintenance, and there are definitely not enough showers for this flagship lounge. So you better don't plan a lot of time here, a snack and a drink, and you can leave again. I'm Chris. I've been crazy about planes since childhood. As an opera singer and also privately, I'm constantly on the go with way over 100 detailed reports on my 2 channels. Everything here is about airlines, low cost, economy class, business class and first class, but also about hotels and exciting travel destinations worldwide on all continents, with lots of tips, insider knowledge and above all, always honest. And today we're flying through Asia on the Airbus A330 of the former 5-star and then disaster airline Malaysia Airlines. Welcome again to this zombie edition of Traversing Fly. Zombie because I had almost no sleep, and this is an early morning flight. I slept maybe 3 hours and that was it, so here you go. At first glance, the business class cabin here on the Airbus A330-300 looks nice and modern. The Thompson Vantage seat is installed here, so you really have to be careful where to sit, otherwise it can be a very narrow experience with a really bad foot coffin, and you'll find this seat on other airlines too, so take a close look and more information on that later. 27 out of 290 seats on this Airbus A330-300 are in business class, and I chose the so-called throne seat for demonstration purposes because I don't think it's a great seat as it's often said, and I'll show you later why. By the way, the seats on the Airbus A350 to London or Sydney are the same. Malaysia Airlines would have much more comfortable seats on the A330-200s, but that does not mean that they would fly more long-haul routes, which is really sad. And after boarding you got a selection of orange juice, apple juice and water, then a cold wet towel. On another flight I had a hot wet towel, so that's I guess up to the staff. And then there was a menu, and it's not a very special menu, there's a couple of nice breakfast dishes, but there's no alcohol, so you need to know that, at least on this flight. Other than that, it's a very nice cabin. And the staff is really very nice. The safety video of Malaysia Airlines is so much fun to watch. So here it is on our way to the runway.
If you want to take it off, lift up the thingamabob. I think it's called a flag.
Your exit. Are you ready? So please, for your safety.
Keep it on, keep it on.
Have you respect when we fight together?
And we're already at our cruising altitude, and what was really very nice in the beginning was the crew. They were very friendly, very welcoming, so that was a very nice start into this flight. And before takeoff we also got the menu card, and this is a morning flight, so there's a selection of all kinds of breakfast options. So we have a nasi lemak, or mushroom omelette, or a Chinese style fried mee hoon. That's a chicken dish. And there's of course yogurt and some fruits and a selection of beverages. There was no vegetarian dish on offer, so you would have to pre-order it. And in general, you can order your dish online a few days before the flight. Alcoholic beverages were not included in the list, but later some nice bottle turned up, as you will see. Malaysia Airlines used to have a much bigger network, many more long-haul destinations, and today it's rather limited. I remember when I was a teenager, I flew Malaysia Airlines from Frankfurt to Thailand via Kuala Lumpur to visit my relatives over there, and back then they had connections to Frankfurt and also to Munich, for example. Well, today the only European destination is London, and that was it. The airline wasn't very lucky in the past decade, and 2014 brought two horrible disasters within only 4 months, from which the airline hardly recovered. First, a huge Boeing 777 bound for Beijing, which simply disappeared over the Indian Ocean, and then the accidental downing of a flight from Amsterdam by militias over Ukraine. That was a big shock for the airline and damaged the airline for quite some years, although they couldn't do anything about it and they were not guilty for it. But let's move on to happier things now. Luckily, the food is coming. In addition to the regular menu, you can also select some other options before your flight online. And I selected some red snapper here, a curry with red snapper. And instead of bread, you get this. And then I get some yogurt with granola and some fruits, just as on the regular menu. And before we're talking more about food, seat and bed, here's an important announcement from Seat 6K. If you like this report, please give me a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel right away with a little bell next to it. You would make my day, and you're gonna be informed when there's new things happening here on Travelsing Fly, new trip reports, destination reports, and above all, airline reviews. By the way, if you're flying more than 5 hours on Malaysia Airlines, you have a different kind of service. It's going to be like a big international service, including alcoholic beverages such as champagne and wines and so on. And also, if you fly, for example, to London or to Sydney, Melbourne from Kuala Lumpur, you're going to have an amenity kit. So now let's dig in, because this flight is just 3 hours long, and I need to try all of this before we land, of course. However, the table is a little unpractical because it ends kind of here. It's not really centered, so you always have to lean a little to your left side to be really in the middle of your table. So that's unpractical, but I know that's really champagne problems. I just wanted to start complaining about that orange juice, apple juice and water and maybe some soft drinks might not be enough on a flight like this. And in the same moment they just came in with champagne on their card. And I don't know now if that is because I'm on board and I asked about the beverages on longer flights or not, but they had some champagne of Duval de Roi. But still, I think that there should be more to select from, maybe some other fruit juices. It doesn't need to be alcohol, but maybe some interesting fruit juices, some mocktails or something like that maybe, because I mean the competition here is quite strong. They have Singapore Airlines here in the region, for example, where they have a huge selection of beverages, and just 3 very regular things is maybe not enough. And then also my tray just disappeared in a second, quite abruptly, but in a friendly way. It was suddenly gone. I would have liked to finish my banana cake maybe, but anyway, I think for my waistline it's much better that I could not finish it.
Darling, have you gained weight?
I also had a chance to check out the economy class cabin, which was almost empty. The seats have TV screens, but they don't offer extra comfort like footrests. You can tell that everything is just a bit worn. For a 5 or 6 hour flight through Asia, however, it's still absolutely okay, and of course much nicer than with the big low-cost competitors in the region. As always on the A330, the business class lavatories are small and unspectacular, but they were tidy, and there was some hand cream and a light eau de toilette without visible branding. So let's lie down now and check out the bed, and let's be strong now. Every time it's getting a little tight around your feet on a business class seat, I like to call this part of it a foot coffin. Well, you can see here the whole thing is rather like a coffin feeling maybe, because not only go your feet into a really very narrow compartment for your legs, but also the whole seat goes down into what is kind of like a feeling of a coffin. So I'm not a big fan of it. I mean, quite a lot of airlines offer this kind of seat. For example, Swiss, they call it even a throne seat, because you have this single seat and you have some place over here to put stuff. So they call it a throne seat, and they even charge extra money if you want to reserve this kind of seat. I'm not a big fan of it. And if you like to have more space for your feet, there's still a solution, because once you have a double seat, there's always one seat that has quite a lot of leg room, and that's the window seats, the double window seats, and the ones directly on the aisle, by the aisle. There you have a lot of extra leg room. However, this kind of seat is not what I really like. I only like it for filming, because you have a lot of options to put a camera on. In my opinion, that's the only good reason to take this kind of seat. And also, if you like to sleep on the side, you know, just turning is kind of really narrow unless you're a super tiny person. I'm not, as you know, but I'm also not the biggest person. So it is really tight and not fantastic. On a long-haul flight overnight, I'm not so sure. What is practical, especially with the throne seat, however, is the extra shelf and storage, with much more space than on all other seats, with 2 small closets, one in the console with a mirror and one down there next to the seat, and that you'd otherwise share on the double seats with your neighbor. And then another nice thing is the mirror here on the side of the seat. That's a quite nice gimmick. However, the position is a little strange, because you must be a really small person to just look in there. Otherwise you really have to bend down, and otherwise you see just your belly and not your face. And I mostly look at my face to correct something there, because there's nothing to correct anymore here. So another nice thing about this seat is a lumbar support. There's an air cushion built into the seat, and you can just blow it up and make it flat again. And they also have kind of a massage option where the air cushion just gets bigger and smaller again. And here are the headsets. They're over-ear headsets, but they're not noise cancelling. And with that we are at the entertainment system, and that's a quite okay system. It's a medium good, so that means it's good and totally sufficient. There's a nice selection of movies, TV shows and music. However, and I'm sorry that I'm nagging again, the monitor screen is really not responsive at all. It takes very long from when you touch the screen until you get the result of what you touched. So if you really want to go through all the options, you really have to be very patient. I'm a patient person actually, but I just couldn't go through the program. It's just taking too long. A flight from Kuala Lumpur to Bali crosses over the islands of Malaysia and Indonesia, and especially before you land in Bali, you have a chance to see the volcanoes of Java. There's quite a lot of volcanoes, and if you're lucky and the weather is good, you have a very beautiful view on the right side. Either you see them in clear weather, or they just go through the clouds. Today we are not so lucky. There's just clouds, no volcanoes to see. but that's quite spectacular if you're lucky. I spent some months, long time ago, I spent some months in Yogyakarta studying Indonesian. That's really very long ago, and a lot has changed since then. But anyway, that's still very nice memories, and the volcanoes of Java are really, really impressive.
Really special about Indonesia is the incredible diversity of this huge archipelagic state. Bali doesn't only have rice terraces and many beaches, of which, by the way, none can compete with the great beaches of Thailand, Sulawesi or the Philippines, but Bali is Indonesia's only Hindu island, and therefore it's dotted with beautiful Hindu temples and of course volcanoes, and especially crowds of tourists and horrible road traffic, even by Asian standards. How much does this flight cost? My trip to Bali already started in Bangkok, and business class tickets start from as low as 400 euros or dollars. If it's much more expensive, it might make sense to book it with miles, and the best option here is the miles program of Cathay Pacific, Asia Miles. 30,000 miles are due regardless of whether you fly from Kuala Lumpur to Bali or start already in Bangkok. By the way, the highlight in Bangkok is the Qatar Airways lounge, which you can visit before a flight with Malaysia Airlines, and this is perhaps the best airline lounge in the world at an outstation. More on that in another report. But 30,000 Asia Miles would also get you a ticket on the fabulous business class of Qatar Airways from Munich or Milan to Doha, and that would otherwise cost over 2,000 euros or dollars. Depending on your country of residence, you might be able to generate Asia Miles through a number of partners such as banks and credit cards, sometimes with huge sign-up bonuses, and that way collecting 30,000 miles can be quite easy.
And we're approaching into Bali. So how was this flight? Well, first of all, the crew was of course very nice. Not only in business class but also in economy class. I went back to economy class, and I think they didn't know that I'm from here, from the front, and they were also very friendly over there. But also economy class was half empty, so they were not very stressed on this flight. When it comes to the rest, I mean, the food was okay. It was not fantastic. It was also not bad. It's kind of limited, of course, on such a short flight, but the beverage selection is a little too limited. I mean, when you look around here in the region, the competition is just so much stronger, and that's what they offer here. That's really not enough, in my opinion. Then the entertainment program is a little annoying because it's so slow. I'm not a big technology freak, but here, I mean, the waiting time just to get to the next show, to the next channel, is a little too long. You need to be a really very patient person. Other than that, the seat, you know, it's a little narrow. I mean, it's a modern seat, and you see this throne seat is very popular also, but I think it's just a little too tight for a long flight. On a flight like this is, of course, super luxurious, but not on a long flight, I would say, even though this is being sold at a higher price at some airlines, such as Swiss. And I mean, I've flown on this seat on Swiss and also on Eurowings, for example, on Longhaul to America, and I would not do that unless I would do it for demonstration reasons, like for my reports. So altogether it was an okay flight. It's not breathtaking, but it's also not bad. It's a friendly, welcoming crew, and for a shorter flight it's just totally worth it. And here we are in Bali. I hope you really liked this report and it got some really good information for you too. If yes, then please stay tuned and see you again very soon here at Travel, Sing, Fly.